Hello friends, I am the Dungeon Tutor. Welcome to my little video. Today is the 1st of August, and it is the first day of RPGaDay 2024. RPGaDay is, of course, an ongoing effort by the gaming community, certain members inspired by Autocratic, that try to put out positive messages for the gaming community, uplifting everybody and maybe exposing or widening our breadth and range so that we can all enjoy things a little bit more. Today is, as always, a topic given by the RPGaDay site, and today's question or guided topic is, what's the first RPG that I bought this year? Now, if you go through and you just hit hashtag RPGaDay 2024, you might get a lot of different answers, which makes this kind of useful to find out what people are buying, what they're interested in. You're going to get a lot of things that may be, things that you're familiar with. But there's a possibility you might learn some new games. This one was new to me when I found it. It's not a brand new game, but I happened to find it at a half-price books, which is one of my kryptonites. I have very low resistance. But this one jumped out at me, so I felt pretty good about it. This particular game is called Broken Compass. This is made by Guillotine Press, but it's also co-sponsored by Cool Minis or Not, which is a board game maker I'm familiar with. They made Massive Darkness, which I ended up getting. They also make Zombicide, which is very popular, and a variety of iterations on those themes. And this game is interesting because this is a game that attempts to replicate the feeling you get when you're playing a game like Tomb Raider or Uncharted, where you are a lone person, or in this case a small group, who are put into positions of high adventure, where it is your character's strength and guts and fortitude and skill that get you through things as much as anything. So an emphasis is on action, confrontation, and overcoming incredible odds. But the prizes are worth it too. Generally, you aren't just going to try to find your tax forms. You're going out to find the stolen copy of the Constitution to show everybody that the original Constitution was faked or something like that. I don't know. There's a lot of promise in this kind of game. The internal art in the game caught my eye. It's very pretty. And I thought that it gave a pretty good rundown of some of the things that a person might want to include, including tons of callbacks to things like Indiana Jones, to get people on the right path for what this game is trying to sell itself as. It uses a D6 system and is itself pretty good. Decent system, fast-paced, easy to do. Nothing overly complicated that gets in the way of smooth, fast action. The characters are, there's a lot of inspiration to draw from throughout history. And this game does take advantage of a lot of that. Cutely, this one looks like this was from a Kickstarter, and the person looked at it, goes, interesting, and just never got a chance to use it or some such. I find when I go to half-price books, a lot of the things that are there, sadly, are turned over by families of gamers who, they don't know what to do with all these weird books, but they do know a place that gives cash for books, so they turn over the things, and that's how people like me sometimes find entire collections of games. And in the case of this one, I don't usually look for a board game manufacturer to make a good role-playing game, but this one had a lot of promise and a lot of zest behind it, which made me happy to find not only it, but I also found a supporting cast. Season 1, Golden Age, Finding Lost Civilizations, with all sorts of information and guided adventure ideas for running things more like, an Indiana Jones scenario, where you stumble into ruins and have to track your way through the world chasing clues about things that happened in the past. And by doing that, you come closer and closer towards your goal. So you can string together a series of encounters that span the globe, literally, all in the purposes of accomplishing whatever your mission is. Which, it's pretty cool. These do not appear to be period dependent as much, so you're not trapped in the World War II era. You can play in modern days. But it does talk about playing in different eras and the different complexities that might come up, or giving tips on how you can portray these different time periods and scenarios accurately, or at least accurately enough that they'll be entertaining for your players. That is ultimately the point, right? Right. So, we have Golden Age. We also have Jolly Roger. Pirates! Who doesn't love a good pirate game? And quite honestly, pirate games really do need this kind of approach. The idea of being an action-adventure, swashbuckling, swinging from the riggings, swinging your cutlass and brandishing your pistol type game. I've tried a pirate game that was more, simulationist, and it was fine, but the action was a little stodgy, the combats were less than satisfying. With something like this, and encouraging a lot of action and dynamism in the gameplay, I think this might be a superior experience. Now, sadly, I haven't gotten a chance to play it yet, or run it. Run it, more likely. I am the eternal game master. But there's a lot of hope. I mean, there's so much in piracy and the age of pirates that really does call for adventure. It calls for action and the possibility of great riches. Which, unprecedented. These days, if you find a pirate's hoard, somebody's going to come wanting to talk to you about how much of it they're getting. So, that the idea of potentially, vast wealth and success against a living of, all the things ways that you can die. Cannonades from rival pirates, or the law. As it stands, law comes out of the barrel of a gun in the Age of Pirates. But also, of course, you have cursed skeleton pirates, perhaps, if you want to take a page from Pirates of the Caribbean. You have any number of threats that you can imagine, including, if you go on to, say, some land in the Caribbean, it could have a wrinkle thrown at you. You might find an island with dinosaurs or something. Those are the kind of unexpected, wild adventures that you might have, and certainly some of those fit into some of the tales told from that time period. So that's cool. And then we have another one. This one really amused me, because this is one that doesn't get hit on quite as often. This is Voyages Extraordinaire. This covers the kind of the turn of the century, the 18th and 19th, 20th century. The idea that the world is expanding and expanding. The possibilities are nearly infinite, and therefore adventures within that time period, with all of that hope, with all that possibility. The idea from authors like Jules Verne. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Oh, wow. You can have a submarine that travels through places that man has never seen, and can go and return. And this particular ship has a ram that destroys ships until the heroes find and engage with the man behind it, the mysterious Captain Nemo, who is himself kind of a broken, enigmatic figure. 80,000 Around the World in 80 Days. Fantastic book. Phineas Fogg, a classic. But again, with this kind of idea that you can, aside from all of the vagaries of fate and screwing with your itinerary, a person can have such control over what they do that they can plan to go from London to London, circumventing the entire globe, and know the time and date that they can come back. This is a particularly British thing, because they had the empire that spanned the globe, and the trust that things were so reliable. But still, it was a fascinating book. And this is the idea. This also goes along with other mysterious things, like the Loch Ness monster and having an adventure there. Not quite mad science, I don't think. This is the one, though, that if I started running Broken Compass, I'd probably jump into something like this, because this really, really does excite me. Not the other ones don't. Not by any stretch. But I think my players would really, really love the idea of tackling a time period where there's no cell phones, where a person can still get by on their own two fists and guts and attitude, but wit and cleverness is also going to be a big part of it. And my players are cerebral. They like to think their way through things. So I think that could be fun. But the last book, again, kind of emphasizing the flexibility of the system. This is the spin-off What If? And why this is important in Broken Compass to me is it giving some ideas, not just for Broken Compass, but this is also, I hope, has some ideas for ways I can take other games and adapt them, maybe in elements that I didn't anticipate. The genres that this covers, not big enough to have their own full book, which is fine. Things like cosmic horror. On its face, cosmic horror is a relatively simple concept. Chaosium, I know, has done amazing things with Call of Cthulhu, but a lot of their adventures kind of come down to the same thing. There's a mystery that hooks you into something of the supernatural. There's some confrontations that hint at the dangerousness of the supernatural, and then you go and somehow you try to stop the supernatural. There's variations on the theme, but a lot of it falls into line pretty well. And all you kind of need to run that kind of adventure is the right amount of gravitas and a system that works with it. Does help. But, the idea of how those games are set up and how to execute them and make your players buy into them and enjoy them. Obviously, having some new tags, new rules, new things to make the game trip the way you want it to, useful and can be encompassed in something like this. Space opera. I'm going to call it for what it is. It's space opera, more like Star Wars, where it is not necessarily hard sci-fi. It is something more. And also, at the same time, for those of you who dearly love sci-fi, technobabble, and things like that, maybe less. It's over-reliance on things like the Force for Star Wars and all those cool laser swords do take away from the hard sci-fi of travel, what is hyperspace, things like that. But it's still extremely entertaining, engaging, and beloved aspect of pop culture, really. But also, its fandom loves the games. I do. So that could be really interesting. Would I use something like this instead of, say, the Star Wars role-playing games? If I was running a Star Wars game, I don't think I would have a generic version for this, but it is nice to know it's there. And maybe there'll be some interesting ideas on how can I expand my use of Star Wars games. Gods and Men. Now we're going back to maybe fantasy, but historical. Mythical history, which doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have wizards and sorcerers and magical swords all over the place, but it does mean you may have to deal with a grumpy god or two, or have to deal with their displeasure. Which, yeah, that could be a very fascinating area to roleplay. Good Boys, where you're playing as dogs. Okay, there's a number of games like that. It doesn't need to be a huge book. As a matter of fact, that one is 14 pages long. Doesn't have to be a lot. You're playing as dogs. Fantasy Quest. Here we go into full fantasy, and this is going to include your wizards and such. High School. I like games like Tales from the Loop that involve high school. It'd be interesting to see what they do with the rules to make that work. Last on Earth. Apocalyptic stuff. This has been a compelling genre that people have dipped their toes into and whole games have been written about. Oftentimes, they can be centered around a given theme. This one looks like it has some flexibility to it, and yeah, quite a bit of potential there. Blacklight. Cyberpunk. This is cyberpunk stuff, which is cool, I like Cyberpunk, I do. Having a more rules-light, more flexible game system involving Cyberpunk, most Cyberpunk tries to simulate the new realities of this altered technology and this whatever is going on in the world. Rules light might make that a little bit more palatable for people who don't like overly crunchy rule systems and such. Toon City? Toon was an interesting game. Steve Jackson Games' game of playing in a cartoon world certainly was fun to watch and enjoy. I wasn't the biggest fan of the role-playing game of it, simply because you need players who can keep up with Madcap, and that's hard. Maybe this has different elements to it, so it's intriguing, especially since most of the game is grounded in a somewhat realistic scaling of what's difficult and what's not, so I'm curious to see how that changes. Urban Legends. I believe that might be, well, a game exploring urban legends. That could be cool. If it's X-Files, if it's Men in Black, I don't know. But it'll be interesting to look at. Leaving Wonderland. Okay, it's an alternate world, potentially, where the rules of reality don't quite mesh and things are familiar yet odd at the same time. Could be interesting. High Noon, Wild West, always compelling. Some people really, don't have any experience with the Wild West. And again, why that time period and that genre excites some people. But think about it. You are your own law. Yes, there are sheriffs, and yes, they can be on your bad side, sheriffs and marshals and deputies and so on, and lynch mobs are sometimes the final arbiter of the law. But being able to go out with your own pluck, your own daring, your own skills, and make a living among lawlessness, with wide open expanses that you can explore, and all kinds of dangers that you can test yourself against, that's pretty compelling in role-playing games. Hack the System. Okay, playing some sort of a decking style game. Cool. Time travel. Compelling. Very difficult genre to do well, but any advice and guidance that you can get from something like this, very useful. Fortunedale. Not gonna lie, I have no idea what that is. It looks like an entire setting. Could be very fun. I don't know. But, let's see. Fortunedale. An introductory welcome for a small American town with much to hide. So, yeah, one of those, Stepford Wives, Westworld, look behind the curtain, see what's really going on type things. So, yeah, Broken Compass. Neat looking game, good amount of stuff to support it with. I don't think they're going to keep going on and on and on and on with it. It seemed like it was a one and done scenario. Maybe they had a Kickstarter with all of this. Not sure. I don't see the usual trappings of Kickstarters with these. Pages recognizing all the folks with it. Because you usually see that pretty prominently in these games, and I just don't see it. But, regardless, it is a beautifully laid out system. I hope you saw the art on these covers is really nice. The spirit of it, being able to step into boundless adventures in a variety of genres is a precious commodity. You don't get that with every system. And I'm certainly hoping that at some point my players and I are going to get a chance to step into the world of Broken Compass and explore some of these strange new vistas. Very exciting, very much to hope for. So, that's my answer to day number 1, and I apologize if it seems very long, but yeah, it's something special when you get into a new RPG, and it kind of shows you what it has to offer to you and to your group. Something new, something precious, something different, and in many cases, something that will carry you into another scope of learning and experiencing and adjusting your game sense, what rules you know, how to play different styles, and make you better gamers. So, That's my answer. Thank you very much for joining me. I do hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of it. And moving forward, I hope to see you in future videos for RPGaDay and beyond. So, from me to you, thank you. I do appreciate it. And I do hope that between now and that next video that you, yes, you, get a chance to roll some dice, to play some games, to have some fun. But stay safe out there, my friends. Until that next time, farewell.